Thanks for tuning in as we are live on Proline TV for the Our Lads Football Network. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, and we're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. And specifically from the Viking Age, he is the new NFL lead editor for Fansided, Adam Patrick. Adam, good to talk to you again. It's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while. Thank you for having me on. I got a little more gray in my beard now than the last time I was on here,
We
but
all have.
that's what happens when you have small kids and
Oh, yeah.
you're a Vikings fan, so it doesn't help at all. But
No,
yeah, thanks for having me on again. I'm happy to be here.
And thanks for the recommendation for Tyler. He did a great job filling in.
Oh yeah,
Yes, I hadn't been covering the Vikings for the Our Lads draft guide before, and so I had this last second. Hey, can you do the Vikings for us? And I said, sure, obviously. So I needed like a last second recommendation since you weren't available. So Tyler did a great job, and we're actually going to be pushing out at Our Lads the draft review guide. This is last year's, but in about a month we're going to be doing the draft review guide. This is a link in the description of our on-demand video, and everything, or a lot, I should say, of what you talk about here with me today, I am going to use to help me write up the Vikings report, which is going to cover the draft, free agency, UDFAs, all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate your time, Adam.
all right, no pressure.
No, not at all. All right, so let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's start first of all with free agency, since I didn't have a chance to talk to you specifically, of course, when I was talking to Tyler about free agency and previewing the draft. A lot of pickups in free agency. Let's start first of all on offense, because there were a few significant moves here, especially on the offensive line, getting both those veterans from Indianapolis.
Of course, they brought in Ryan Kelly, and they brought in Will Fries. Ryan Kelly, the center, and Will Fries, the guard, to replace Garrett Bradbury at center, who was with the team for about 5 or 6 years, and then Fries being brought in to replace the rotating door of Dalton Reisner and Ed Ingram at right guard there. So now they got some more stability. So yeah, those were two big pickups. And then I think the trade of Jordan Mason from the Niners was an underrated addition to the Vikings this offseason as well. He's a physical runner. Seems like they're gearing more towards a physical style on offense. Obviously, they still have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison to get the ball to those playmakers, but adding guys like Jordan Mason, Will Fries, Ryan Kelly, who are more like mean, like get in your face, run you over type of guys. Seems like that's something they really want to do. Makes sense because they're in a division with the Lions, who've kind of been following a similar formula in the last couple of years of for their success, and then
Sure.
the Eagles as well, with just winning the Super Bowl, winning in the trenches. So I think the old saying goes, the NFL is a copycat league. So the Vikings are trying to build their own, team from the trenches, and they've really invested heavily in the offensive line, probably the most in maybe like the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, maybe since Steve Hutchinson, since they signed him, which was like 2006, 7. They've spent high draft picks, but never really like gone full in. I feel like
Sure.
they have this year. And of course, having JJ McCarthy under center is more incentive to do that because he's a big asset and you want to protect your assets. So that's
Yeah, and we'll talk
the
about
mission
Donovan
is.
Jackson when we go over the draft picks. But yeah,
Yep.
I mean, let's talk about McCarthy, because that has a lot to do with free agency with Sam Darnold gone. So what would you say, like was it a 50-50 split? Was it more, yeah, we want to go with McCarthy, it's okay that Sam Darnold is gone, regarding the fan base?
Fan base, I would say probably more 75 for McCarthy, because I think ever since he was drafted, and then after he played well in the preseason game last year and in camp, like before he got hurt, like he was on schedule to get, he was going to get more first team reps in that next week of practice, and possibly challenge for the starting role in the preseason before he got hurt. So like I don't know how many people realize that how close he was to even like taking the starting job away from Darnold. But yeah, 75 probably, because everyone knows McCarthy's the cheaper option, allows them to build their team, more through free agency, add more pieces, spend more money, get the better free agents. rather than going back to kind of what they did with Kirk Cousins and spend a bunch of money on a quarterback, even though Darnold's deal isn't outrageous. You know, he's still getting paid what, like 35 million more than McCarthy's making probably this year, and that makes a big difference in football.
Yep. Well, you just
Um,
talked about building that offensive line. Well,
yeah, so
money money
they wouldn't have
goes.
been able to do that probably
Yeah.
if they re-signed Darnold. And Darnold did great. He did everything pretty much the Vikings wanted him to do, but in the playoffs, his true colors came out, and they believe that someone like McCarthy, who led Michigan to a national championship, who played in a bunch of big games in college, going to a school like Michigan, like every game's pretty much huge over there.
Oh yeah.
Playing in front of 100,000 people. Um, they think he's more equipped to handle situations like that, and it's going to be interesting to watch. He doesn't have to do a lot next year. The team is like set pretty much around him, like with the receivers, tight ends, running backs, offensive line, like we mentioned. Like he's kind of got to just take the keys and drive the car, and not get any accidents, not get any tickets, and he'll be good to go. I'm not expecting him to throw what Mahomes thrown his first like years of starter, 55 touchdowns. Like
Yeah, but that
I'm
ain't
not
gonna happen.
expecting that.
No.
But if he has 25 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and the Vikings have 13 wins, I don't think a lot of people are going to be complaining.
Yeah, and that also, like you said, brings in the running game and so forth.
Yeah,
So, because JJ McCarthy, the one thing that we don't know yet, and even as a Michigan guy, that we never found out was whether or not he was capable of airing it out, whether or not he was capable of being a gunslinger. That was his one knock, even during the championship season. There wasn't a whole lot of success on the deep passing game. I know there's a lot of work to be done there, but JJ is one of those hardworking kids that you just get the feeling that no matter what level he goes to, as long as he's well coached, which he obviously is in a good position to be a quarterback, that's on that team, based on that history of O'Connell, of course, that he's going to get the job done, and he's got the weapons too. So, like you said, I mean, you said it perfectly. He just has to just do his thing, and if he does, then he's got the talent and the coaching to back him up.
he's got a little bit more motivation now too, because he just now announced he's going to be a dad in September.
Oh,
So
okay. Very nice.
something else to
That'll
play
help.
for.
Sure. I think one thing that looks maybe a little bit unsure, maybe that's the best way of putting it, would be if there was a few games here and there that McCarthy missed because Sam Howell comes in, another trade, and that's the number 2 guy it looks like right now.
Mm-hmm.
Sam did not look very good last year in Seattle. But look, that guy's gone. And there was a lot of reason for that. OC Grubb, not there, didn't do a good job. Okay. Howell showed some promise in Washington. It wasn't a great team when he was there. I actually thought he was a very exciting young college quarterback with potential. So now that he's got O'Connell to, coach him up, is there hope that if they do need to bring him in for a couple of games, that Howell will be able to get the job done?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think O'Connell's done enough in his short time with the Vikings to prove that he can pretty much win with any quarterback. I mean, they won 7 games in 2023 with Josh Dobbs, half of Kirk Cousins, Jaron Hall, and Nick Mullins. And I don't know if many coaches could win 7 games with that kind of combination.
Right.
And then last year with Sam Darnold, everyone's like, Sam Darnold, like he's terrible. He's a bust. And then he gets the most out of him, completely turns his career around. He just has a way of like getting the most out of his quarterbacks, whether it's like a high ceiling or a lower ceiling. So if Howell has to go in for a couple games, I'm very confident that they'll be able to, win the majority of those games. I'm not worried at all. But like, it's not the ideal situation, but I think the Vikings like to bring in guys like who've been in the league for a little longer, but are also they can develop. So like when they brought Daniel Jones in last year, and they got Howell this year, even Brett Rippon, who's been around the league a little bit, but he hasn't really played. But he's more of like he's just familiar with how things work in the NFL. Sure. So it's kind of a way to still help JJ McCarthy, and then like they kind of feed off of each other in the quarterback room. So I like the addition of Howell. I also liked it because it pretty much quieted and silenced, I think, all the Aaron Rodgers chatter. That
okay. Yeah.
For some reason, taking up most of the Vikings. Like they they signed all these great players, and everyone's like, oh, but what about Aaron Rodgers? It's like, all right. So yeah, there was one specific outlet pushing that, but I think that's been put to bed for now. I
Yeah,
did just
that
read.
would have made no
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
No.
I the,
If
Aaron
Sam
Rodgers.
Howell was your starter, then okay,
Right,
let's have
right,
that
right, 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 right.
conversation. Yeah.
But like, I'm sure this is how it went. Like Aaron Rodgers probably called O'Connell, was like, hey, because they're buddies or whatever, because they grew up in California and played together or whatever. Um, hey, you want to have a talk? Maybe I could be your quarterback. And he's probably, being a good friend, O'Connell's probably like, sure, whatever, we'll talk.
Yeah.
And then he'll be like, yeah, you can come in and play for like $1 million. I don't know if you'll be the starter.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's probably the extent of the conversation. O'Connell probably being a good friend, and of course, everyone else just runs away. Oh, the Vikings are interested in Aaron Rodgers. He's the better pick. You don't know about JJ McCarthy? I'm like, did we watch Aaron Rodgers last year? He was not
Yeah.
good. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that's over.
Yes,
I'm hoping for him to
absolutely.
sign with the Steelers soon, and just
Yeah, we're all waiting for that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's gonna happen.
It will. We all know that. Had an opportunity to talk to our Pittsburgh Steeler insider just a few days ago. That's, of course, available already here on the channel. You can check that interview out. Alex Kozora does a great
Oh,
job.
nice. Yeah.
Okay, so when we go through this and I go through each position, I also want to ask you, might as well take a look at some of the other players, including even some of the UDFAs. So there weren't any draft picks at running back, or at quarterback. So we might as well just throw in those two UDFAs because Trey Stewart, he was pretty productive at a lower level, Jacksonville State, even though Jacksonville State was very successful the last couple of years as a program down there. And Max Brosmer did a great job stepping up from the FCS to the Minnesota Gophers and showed that he's got talent. It's just a matter of finding the right spot and developing a little bit more of his game. And again, I think he could have picked the more perfect spot to land. So do you think it's possible? I mean, do you actually think that it's if Brosmer shows enough that he could possibly win a third job just because they wouldn't want to lose him to stash him on the practice squad?
It's possible. Yeah, I think it'll probably depend on what he does in the preseason. Because if he, shows out and blows up, he's probably going to have a lot of calls from the Viking or from other teams trying to trade for him or whatever, which could work out for the Vikings anyways.
That's true.
But right now, I would say practice squad is probably where he's headed, where they would like to probably put him. He could challenge for that 3 spot depending on what goes on in training camp and stuff in preseason, like I said. But I would say best case scenario right now would probably be practice squad for him. With Trey Stewart, I think he might have a better chance of making the active roster because they do have Ty Chandler, who is in the final year of his contract, I believe. So that and another guy named Xavier Scott, who's just not really. I think they added him. They signed him to the practice squad last year, and they kept him around for this year. So like that third running back role is kind of open right now, and they could add someone else. I saw something where like the Vikings should be a possible landing spot for Travis Etienne, and I don't know about that, but maybe someone maybe with a little more experience. But I could see someone like Trey Stewart, making the final roster, especially if he's able to do more, like contribute on special teams and stuff like that. And then there's another guy, Silas Bolden, who I think has a good chance of making the team as a returner because he was a really like dynamic returner when he was at Texas.
Okay.
And Brandon Powell is not with the Vikings anymore, and he was their primary punt returner for the last 2 years. So I think Silas Bolden has a good chance at possibly making the active roster as a returner for the Vikings next season.
So that would be it. If Bolden's going to make it, it's going to be because of the return position. And speaking of the wide receivers and free agency, they add Rondell Moore. I guess Tim Jones, I'm assuming he's more of a special team guy. But Rondell Moore, it's about obviously staying healthy. And if he does, that slot job is really his, right?
Yeah, I don't know because it sounds like he might not even be healthy until training camp to practice.
Okay.
He suffered like what the Falcons called a serious knee injury last summer, but there was never really any details beyond that, whether it was an ACL, whether it was like a dislocation or MCL or whatever. There's not a whole lot of details behind what exactly happened with that injury. And O'Connell said, I believe, at the owners meetings in March that Rondell Moore might be someone who is not available until training camp as he continues to like rehab from his injury. So yes, he's a veteran. Yes, he has good experience. I don't want to put anything in terms of like guaranteeing he'll be on the roster because he's a veteran. Because they brought guys in before where you're like, oh yeah, he'll make the team, and then that ends up not being the case.
Okay.
So I think Jalen Naylor still got a good chance of making the roster. I think Ty Felton has a good chance, the third round pick they had this year.
Yeah.
Tim Jones will probably make it just because they like to keep someone for special teams. They had Trent Sherfield on their team last year, and he was pretty much there for special teams. And there's a couple guys lower on the depth chart that might have a chance, who have been with the team for a couple years on the practice squad that could show out. So
Okay. Yeah, it
it's
looks like
pretty,
there's some open
yeah.
opportunities.
After I wouldn't say Naylor's job is totally guaranteed because of Felton being there too, but like after that wide receiver 3 spot's pretty open, and the Vikings
Yeah.
like to keep like 5 or 6 receivers. So there's a couple jobs up for grabs this summer for sure.
Okay, let's stick on offense too. And again, we talked about Kelly and Freeze on the offensive line. Taking a look, there was also a few guys that they signed to the UDFA's. The one that sticks out to me is Logan Brown.
Yep.
I thought he could have been a draftable player. A lot of experience at Kansas, seemed to get better and better. And School was also somebody that was an important signing because Tampa Bay really liked them as a good swing, and Minnesota has him.
Yeah, and Christian Darrisaw is coming back from his own torn ACL. So they're his availability for week 1 is still up in the air.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a guarantee. I'm sure they would like him to play week 1, but I feel like they're probably more concerned about him playing the majority of the rest of the season rather than rushing him back on the field for week 1. So School could be someone who steps up and gets some starting time early in the season. Maybe Logan Brown does that. Maybe Donovan Jackson switches out to left tackle like he did at Ohio State last year. They've got a lot of different options if they want to do that. And then Walter Rouse, who they drafted last year, the tackle, I think they want him. There's been rumblings of them wanting to move him to guard. So they've got a lot of guys who have a lot of versatility that can play on the outside or the inside if they need to, which is something I don't think they could have said a couple years ago. So they've got a lot of options, which is weird when talking about a Vikings offensive line because it's typically not their strength. But
well, that sounds good then.
They've definitely put a lot of resources into it, so it's good.
Have you heard? Did you hear anything at all last year regarding Rouse or Jurgens, the late round picks, or they're still a mystery at this point?
With Jurgens, they liked him, but Bradbury, they just felt more comfortable with him with the experience of him being out there, and I think Jurgens. He would have been someone to keep an eye on, possibly as a replacement for Bradbury this year, but they went out and signed Ryan Kelly, so maybe they're more comfortable. Maybe Jurgens is the guy next year, takes over at center.
So they're serious about developing him as a starter.
Yeah, I think they like him, and he can play, other spots on the line too, like guard as well if they need to use that because football guys get hurt. And then Walter Rouse, I think they like him as well, but like I said, they want to see how he does maybe at guard just to add that other versatility to have available if they need it in the season. And I think he's someone that they like. I believe went to Oklahoma. Yeah, I think he went to Oklahoma. So yeah, he's got some experience at playing against tough competition. So they're pretty high on those guys from everything I've heard.
Okay, let's now switch down here on the Arled's official depth chart for the Vikings.
Defense.
Yeah, and we'll start up front. So they bring in Hargrave and Allen. Those are two big moves, the biggest ones in free agency for the defense.
Yes. Sticking with the theme of building through the trenches this offseason, the Vikings added 2 more on the defensive line. Big upgrades. Jonathan Allen, I think, was a huge addition. I don't know how many people thought that was going to happen, but it also helps that his agency is located in Minneapolis, so I'm sure that helped out a little bit. And then Javon Hargrave, of course, that's another great addition. Lots of good starting experience with the Niners and Eagles, 2 teams that have been top contenders in the NFC the last few years. So I think that's good veteran addition for the defensive line. Harrison Phillips, of course, is still there. Jalen Redmond played really well last year for the Vikings, and they re-signed him this year before like free agency even started. So I liked him.
Was that
Um,
summer
he was from
league
UFL, yeah.
dude?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. So he did really well. Like he was arguably, not arguably, I think he was the Vikings like top graded defensive lineman last year by PFF. So um, he did really well. So I think they have more of like a rotation this year of a lot better talent. I think Allen and Phillips will obviously be on the field the most, but I could see something where like Redmond and Hargrave are like kind of splitting time, going back and forth to keep guys fresh. And then they added the kid from Georgia as
Yeah.
well in the draft, so that should help too. I think a lot of people have picked him as like someone who could kind of maybe surprise because he's someone who like didn't really produce at Georgia, but maybe he didn't because there wasn't as many opportunities because he had
Yeah.
some
He's a
like
raw kid, but yeah, he's
he
got
had
some
some
tools to work with.
dudes in
Yes.
front of him,
Yes.
at Georgia. So like if he played at a different school, maybe it could have been different. But they like so far what they like from him. There's Levi Drake Rodriguez who had a really good camp last year, made the team as a 7th rounder. I think I'm going to assume they still like him. Elijah Williams, they just signed out of I want to say an HSBCU school. Yeah,
Morgan
Morgan
State.
State. He I think he had like 16 sacks or something last year for Morgan State. So someone that they're really excited about as well.
Okay.
He was invited to rookie camp as a tryout, so he obviously did enough to impress them to earn a contract. So I'm curious to see how he does in camp. And then Taki Tai Taimini, I don't know.
Sure, we'll go with that.
They liked him last year as well, and I believe he made the active roster, but he just got hurt, so he didn't get a lot of playing time. But
Yeah, I mean, a lot of questions. I mean, just if I can,
yeah,
if you don't know the Vikings and you just look at the depth chart, you go, wow, look at all of
right,
these free agents,
yep,
college free agents, and a draft pick.
yep,
That's really what they're made, and a
yep,
7th rounder.
yep.
As far as the depth. So,
And the kid from the UFL kid.
and the UFL kid. So yeah, that's definitely something that you need to do
But
some
no,
homework on.
I think it's good. I think and the Vikings play a different kind of defense. It's not like the Eagles or somebody else like a traditional 4-3 where like Vikings line up 3-4, but with Brian Flores, he can line anybody up anywhere and just to confuse you and mix things up. So like just because it says on the depth chart that these are the 3 guys leading the top doesn't mean like those are the guys that are going to get the most playing time. It could vary every week, but I would say Jonathan Allen and Harrison Phillips will still probably get the majority of
Yeah.
the snaps from that group.
Okay, linebacker, and looks like just one official signing in Eric Wilson.
Yep.
And yet there were a bunch of UDFAs, including Tyler Batty,
Yep.
If we're talking not just linebackers, but edge rushers,
Yep.
Because Batty was really BYU's leading edge rusher the last couple of years. And of course, they had an undefeated run there for a while last season, did the BYU Cougars. So have you heard anything yet? Because it looks like there are 5 or 6 UDFAs they signed at this position, including, and again, Eric Wilson. Is he going to be more of a special teams guy?
I think so. Yeah. He was Eric Wilson started out as a undrafted rookie with the Vikings. That's why he started his career.
That's
And
right.
then
Yes.
he left for a few years, played for the Saints and the Packers. And then so he came back this year, it was nice to see. I always liked him. I thought he was good. I think he started 2020 or 2021 under Zimmer, like Zimmer's last year. I think he was the starting linebacker, one of them. And so yeah, I'm happy to see him back. But yeah, with like Tyler Batty and some of the other guys, the Vikings have been really good at finding like these undrafted edge rushers. You look at Bo Richter, you got Gabriel Murphy last year too. They've done really well with finding guys who go undrafted for whatever reason, and they bring them in and get the most out of them. Especially in Brian Flores' defense, seems to bring the most out of edge rushers because it's just really fun to play in Brian Flores' defense when you get to just run after the quarterback all day.
Yeah.
So, and then with with all their UDFA's that they signed, they only drafted 5 players, so they need I think they signed like 19 UDFA's.
Okay.
So that's why they have so many undrafted guys because they only
Yeah.
had 5 picks this year.
That's it.
which is fine because that's a result of drafting JJ McCarthy and drafting Dallas Turner last year.
Sure. It's
Dallas
where
Turner,
scouting helps.
yeah. So Dallas Turner, I think he's in for a a bigger year this year because Patrick Jones isn't there anymore. He'll have to go sign with the Panthers. So there's going to be some opening for snaps there. So I think he'll be able to take advantage of that. And then Kobe King is more of a special teams guy right now. Could develop into something further along the line, but I think for now and maybe for next year is more of a special teams uh,
Yeah, I agree.
centric
Yeah.
player for them. And then there's a couple guys maybe on the bubble like Brian Asamoah who, he's been with the team since 2022, but he's been mainly a special teams guy. So I'm not going to sit here and say like his spot's guaranteed. But yeah, at the top of the depth chart, you really can't go wrong with Grenard, Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, and Ivan
Nope.
Pace. So
Uh,
they have a really good linebacking unit and maybe one of the best in the league.
Bo Richter, is that do we have him there just because someone had to be there, or is Bo Richter deserve to be there?
He's good. He made the final 53 last year as a undrafted rookie. So um, he did a lot of good things on special teams last year. I think he might get some more opportunities rushing the passer this year too with Patrick Jones going. But no,
Okay.
yeah, he's a good player, and I think he'll probably stand out in training camp in the preseason because he had a good camp last year too. And Gabriel Murphy was injured for I think most of 2024, so that's someone to keep an eye on too.
And some of these guys, I mean, Chambliss playing for Georgia, as you can
Yep.
see there, and even Mousy for Auburn.
They got a lot of options.
Yeah, so these are both of them from Auburn actually.
Yep.
Keys. So yeah, so there's some good players um, that could end up either making the team or they're just going to be one phone call away from the practice squad.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so at the secondary, this is where they were a little bit more active in free agency. Yep. Rogers seems to be the top guy. Thomas has a lot of experience. Okuda, I mean, he just hasn't never worked out, so he's in another spot. We'll see if this is a good, a good place for him. And then 3 others added to the list. Yep. So, what do you see here? Who are the most obviously Rogers being the key guy?
Yeah, I've heard that they like Isaiah Rogers a lot, and they want him to be a starter with Byron Murphy. But other than that, it's pretty open. I think ideally they would like Mekhi Blackman to come back and be what he was before he tore his ACL last summer and missed the entire season. He was a 3rd-round pick in 2023, so obviously they would like to see what he can do this year. They really like Dwight McLaughlin, who was a UDFA last year. So I'd keep an eye on him as earning a job on the active roster. Tavier Thomas seems more like a special teams guy. It's what he's been pretty much throughout his whole career. I think he was with the Bucks last. And then, yeah, like this could be a position where I think because last year they had Stephon Gilmore, like right around training camp. Like I could see this being a position where they add another veteran.
Okay.
During that, possibly even Gilmore. Because apparently he just doesn't want to do OTAs and minicamp, which
yeah,
at his age,
yeah.
can't really blame him. I'm pretty sure he knows how to play in Brian Flores' defense at this point.
Sure.
So that's a position I would keep an eye on for possibly signing someone before training camp or during training camp.
Okay, makes sense.
And then in terms of safety, Harrison Smith obviously back because he's never going to retire. Josh Metellus, just Swiss Army knife, plays everywhere. Cam Bynum is gone, but they really like Theo Jackson. He's been someone that I believe they've had on the roster for like the last 2 years, and he's someone who stood out in camp in the preseason, and clearly they feel comfortable about him being a starter, more of a starting role at least next year. And they gave him an extension, I think, before free agency started, just to kind of prove that. So he might be someone that kind of pops this year and surprises some people, but. Yeah, secondary, I would say probably is their biggest question mark, at least on the defense, possibly on the whole roster. But in Brian Flores' defense, you just gotta keep your guy in front of you pretty much and not give up the big play. That's pretty much what he has out of his corners and safeties, and then we'll see what happens. But a lot of good pieces on that defense that finished, I believe, 4th in points allowed per drive last year. So pretty good.
Yeah, it's the thing is that when you have a really good assistant coach and he doesn't get the job, obviously when you're a fan
Right.
of that assistant coach,
Oh no.
yeah, sorry to see that you had to come back. Yeah,
Listen, I'm
but
sure there's no salary cap on how much coaches get paid, so I'm sure
no,
he's very well compensated in Minnesota. So
yeah, I just wonder why still it's taken so long for owners to get that to not understand.
mhm.
I mean, you could throw a gazillion amount of dollars out there for players that don't deserve it,
Mhm.
but you won't pay
Yeah.
a quality head coach or an assistant coach like a few million extra dollars. I mean,
Mhm.
come on now.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. Okay, so special teams. Anything dramatic? Rogers, will he be? Even though he's going to have responsibilities potentially as a starting corner, you think that they'll stick him there at kick returner?
Yeah,
And if not, how does it look?
I don't know. I don't know what they're planning. If he's a starter, I'm not so sure they would probably want him as a kick
Mm-hmm.
returner. Not that teams really return kicks anymore. Um, although I just saw like that you can onside kick in every quarter now, and I'm like,
Oh,
still, you still have to tell the other team that you're
oh, you
okay.
do have to still
Well,
tell them.
because
Okay.
they're like 30 yards away. So
Uh,
like, if you didn't have to do that, then every team would onside kick because they'd be
yeah,
like,
that's
oh,
true.
yep,
That's true. Yeah.
so, yeah, they just get rid of the kickoff or put it back. I know it's because of safety, but like it's just it seems pointless now. It's
I
kind
mean,
of
the onside kick I never understood. I mean, please, I need someone to show me that because I've
yeah,
watched onside kicks all my life, which hardly ever happen, and
right,
I just don't recall ever seeing guys walked off the field because he's got concussions or
right,
I don't recall all
yeah,
this mass injury
yeah.
situation on onside kicks.
Well,
But
maybe they'll do like was it is it it's not the XFL now, it's UFL now. Ever do they do like 4th and 15 or something where you can do that and instead of an
that's an
onside kick?
option I've heard.
Yeah.
Yes, that could be interesting.
I don't know.
A gimmick,
Whatever makes
but
the most money for the NFL is what
yeah,
it comes down
exactly.
to. For the special teams, Will Reichert's locked in at kicker. Andrew DePaulo's locked in. It's at long snapper. Punter it's a different question. Ryan Wright, he made the team as a UDFA in 2022. Had a good year as a rookie.
Okay.
Not been that great last 2 years. Kind of been middle of the pack, bottom third of the NFL in terms of like punting average
Oh, that's not good.
and net punt.
Especially when half of your games or more than half are in a dome.
Yeah, so exactly. So they got this kid from Auburn, Oscar Chapman, and they get a roster exemption for him because he's from Australia, so he's part of like the international pathway program.
Even better.
But I mean, when you'd say Australian punter to me, I'm like, sure, sign me up.
Yeah,
Like I feel pretty good that this kid can kick the ball. So I'll be curious to watch that. Obviously, with the punter too, you have to be a good holder. So that will come into play as well. If Will Reichert feels good about Chapman being a good holder, then I think there's a good chance he can make the team. So
okay.
that's a battle to keep an eye on.